Hello, I'm Karena.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to As Told by ADHD.
This podcast is a brainchild of two best friends with ADHD who share a passion for learning and a knack for finding the most fascinating tidbits of knowledge.
Each week, we embark on a wild and hilarious journey of discovery as we dive headfirst into topics that pique our curiosity. From dark folklore to bizarre statistics, cultural ceremonies to famous dead people, we're here to entertain, educate, and tickle your funny bone.
This week on As Told by ADHD, we're talking about women in the workforce. Now, what do you think about when I say women in the workforce? Like, what era do you think of?
I think about how it was then. There's still some places that do the then now, which shame on you, but I think about how the workforce was for women back in the day, kind of just how the environment was.
Well, I think about, I don't know why, but like my first thought is always Rosie the Riveter, because she, like, I just picture the picture that's like, yeah, because she's like a boss ass bitch.
No, it's this way.
It's this way.
Right?
I can't do that right now. Ow. I think about Rosie the Riveter, and I think about boss ass bitches. I think about women in STEM, but that's not where I'm going to go today. I don't know if that's where you're going today.
We dabble.
We dabble.
We dabble.
Okay, let's do the dice roll.
Evens.
That's a 6.
It's a
6. All my new girl fans.
We're going first.
6.
All right. Me first. So, I wanted to follow the story of a singular person because I know that this could easily be a first line accounts type story where we kind of talk about like multiple different experiences, especially when women were entering the workforce. But I kind of just wanted to follow one, and whoa, like I should have picked her honestly for the badass woman who changed the world or changed history, because like wow. But what she had to go through.
I found a bunch of women that, like, while researching this topic, would have been great for that topic, the badass women.
Yes. But I wanted to follow the story of a woman named Frances Perkins. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't think I do.
Well, we're going to start how we always do, because we like to do a good little history lesson, a little like upbringing about like who this person is before like we get into the big stuff. So Frances Perkins was born April 10th, 1880 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Aries.
And grew up mainly in Worcester. She didn't have a wealthy family by any means, but they were like stable. Her father ran a stationery and paper business, and her mother worked hard at home to raise her with traits that are going to make her who she was when she entered the workforce swinging, okay? So she raised her with self-discipline, good manners, and a very strong moral responsibility. So just saying, like, you are allowed to care. You are allowed to be here. You are allowed to be, like, wherever you set your mind on, you're allowed to be there because you want to do what's good for, or the greater good, pretty much.
Did you say what
she
year?
raised her? Yes, and she was born in 1880, so this is roughly, 15 years later, like 10 to 15 years later, when she was able to like kind of grasp onto what her mom was like really trying to teach her. But she was raised to be confident, and again, that every room that she walked in, you are allowed to be there. If she wasn't welcome, doesn't matter. You're still allowed to be there. And she was taught that it was okay to have goals and to have a career, even though she was a woman.
If we take anything away from this episode, I want it to be that. You're allowed to be in any room you walk in, and you're allowed to have goals, and you're allowed to go after them. Unless you're going into a room to murder people, then don't do that.
It
Stay out
always
of that
goes
room.
back to murder. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Sorry. I think about true crime a lot.
There are rooms that you're not allowed to be in, but just follow your moral compass, okay? Follow your instincts, okay? If you think for even a minute that it's wrong, it's probably wrong, okay? Instincts don't lie. So, when she was in school, she completely excelled. And then she eventually enrolled in Mount Holyoke College.
Where's that college?
The college is in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yes. So this college, it was tough. The academic work was rigorous, and it was known to have a very extremely serious vibe. Like, you were here to handle business. You keep up or you get out. So while she was there, she studied chemistry, physics, biology, and economics. So
Women in
she was a smart
STEM.
cookie, okay? She wasn't trained as a scientist professionally, but she learned to think very structural, think analytically, which provided her, I feel like, a way of thinking that she will definitely need later on in her future career. But while she was in college, Frances attended a lecture. They have those apart from classes every now and again. So she went to a lecture where the speaker was speaking out against industrial working conditions. They pointed out the long hours people worked, how unsafe they were, and how it could exploit women and children especially. And her eyes were blown open. The lecture lingered in her mind day and night. It made her realize that she was not following the right career path. So she completely did a 180 and redirected her path. She went ahead and graduated, like I said, in 1902. She went ahead and graduated that college. But she went right back to college and started to work towards social work and reform, studying sociology and economics at Columbia University.
Hell yeah.
Which is really hard to get in, especially back then.
Especially being a woman back then. I feel like
Exactly.
I'm not exactly sure on the dates, but I do remember when I was younger, I learned about women not being able to be in male colleges until the 1800s. And
But
even
she
then
was
they were like, no,
well,
most
yeah,
of the time.
they treat them not super great. And when I say not
Mhm.
super great, it's not like they're bullying, they're not, ridiculing pretty much.
Right.
They're just like, you don't belong here.
And she was like, nah, bitch, I do
She's like,
belong
I'm
here.
here.
Do you?
I'm here. Exactly.
I'm here and I'm staying.
But I mean, she has that mentality for sure, but she was in for a culture shock like crazy when she entered Columbia University. It was nothing like Holyoke. There were women who were at college. Columbia was predominantly men,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they looked down on her. Again, not in a bullying way, but they looked at her with such unseriousness, I guess is the best way to put it.
Condescension.
Yeah, but they didn't really condescend her either. They were treating her like a lady. They would open doors. They would say, let me hold that for you. They would, whatever. The condescension that she ended up facing at school, I feel like it was unintentional just because of the way that women were looked at back then. Her being looked at this way, she knew immediately that she was in for a rough time. Just a rough time being taken serious at this school. Even though she belonged here, she got in because they were like, she is so smart. We are literally stupid not to take her in, right?
Mm-hmm.
She came in top of the class already. She was a genius. But when Frances would speak in class, men would look at her like she just spoke Mandarin. if they had structured discussions about public policy or economics, men would cut her off. And the worst part is that she would say something genius, right? Like a whole new way of thinking, and it would be disregarded. And then a male student would repeat what she said and get praised by the whole class and instructors.
Crazy. Honestly, I imagine that majority of the men who had never been in a setting like that with women, they probably weren't even fully paying attention to her. They were probably distracted, like, wow, like, why is she here? And like not even paying attention to what she's saying. And so that's probably why she didn't get a lot of recognition for what she said.
When I say like they looked at her like she was speaking Mandarin, they were more so confused as to why a woman would be able to speak that way, that weren't sure how to react, because they don't necessarily want to treat her with respect and authority, but they also didn't discount what she was saying. They never told her that she was wrong. So she was faced with silence 100% of the time while she was in college. She knew that she wasn't going to be respected at Columbia. She felt like she was being treated as temporary almost, because women, especially in early workforce entrance, women got fired when they got married. And if you have children, you weren't getting hired. So she had to prove that she wasn't going anywhere, whether it's this university or whatever career she decides to get into. But Frances graduates and she was able to get a job in New York in social reform and public service. She was pretty much in this role, she was pretty much an analyst and that involves a lot of paperwork, a lot of inspections and stuff like that. And what she noticed was, even though she was hired for a specific job to be an analyst, her higher ups and other employees treated her like a space filler. Like, they literally didn't know what to do with her.
And what year is this again? Like, what year are we in now?
This was in 1909. This next part will be about 4 to 5 years. So she starts in 1909, and this whole next section will be like the next 4 to 5 years after that.
This is probably one of the biggest times for women in history, because like this is when like suffragettes start popping up, and like they're starting to fight for the right for women to vote. And like obviously it's not until like a little bit later, but like within this time period is like when it's really important for women to like kind of step up and be the type of woman that Frances is being.
Right. And it's difficult too, because like I said, there are definitely intentional instances where men have been horrible towards women, especially those who wanted to work. But in this story, there's not a lot of like absolute intentional, I'm going to discriminate against you. I feel like it was just so built in, it just kind of happened, which is not good also. But at the same time, people are raised with a certain mentality. When you're such a at a young age, your brain locks into that. And it's like, it's called your inner child, pretty much. Your brain locks into that, and it's one of those things that's really hard to reprogram without heavily focusing on what you're trying to reprogram. So that's why I think a lot of it was kind of unintentional, even if it seemed intentional, like at this point, because like they would ask her to do work. She would provide the finished product, and in meetings and briefings, she wasn't able to talk about her own work. The men would talk about the work that had been done in the office, not necessarily crediting her 100% either, um, because it's like they couldn't give her the recognition that she deserved because she was a woman. And she was really good at her job. She was really good at anything that she put her mind to. But they like literally can't say, Frances did this work and this is the outcome. They would have to say our office blah, 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 our department.
I've also noticed, even in like our lifespan, that once you reach a certain age, or once a person reaches a certain age, it's like they kind of can't step out of their own point of view, which I hope that never happens to me. I'm gonna like actively try to like be able to look at other people's perspectives, but like I have noticed that like it's probably because like these men are probably dismissing her because they can't step out of their frame of reference that a woman could be as smart or smarter than them.
No, I agree. Since, like, if she did decide to speak up, like, in a meeting about, like, the work that she did, the room would go, like, silent again. Because, again, she wasn't wrong, but they're just like, why? Whatever. So it was just like college all over again. And again, not because she was wrong, but everybody was staring at her like, almost like, why is she talking right now? And it kind of gets worse. There were moments that she would present her work to her higher ups for like a meeting or whatever, and then they would come into the office. This is where it kind of gets intentional, and explain her own work that she just presented to those higher ups.
That's so frustrating.
What would you do in that situation?
Okay, let me put myself in this frame of reference, in this time period. I think what I would do is the healed Aries in me would, because she's also an Aries, so I'm sure she was feisty. I think I know when to fight and when not to fight. Like, I think I would be like, at least they figured it out. They got the information. It's out there now. Because, like, if I'm in that frame of reference, if I'm in that mindset, in that time period, and I understand the cultural norms of women don't do this usually, and they're usually not allowed to do this, but I'm the exception to the rule right now. It has to start somewhere, is where my mind would be.
And she also, like, you're actually 100% correct. Like,
oh my God.
On what she, like, did.
It's like I'm an Aries.
She didn't do anything. It was said in multiple articles and papers on her that she thought it was amusing.
I probably would think it's a little amusing too. Oh, they figured it out. Good boys.
Yeah.
Good
like
job,
that was pretty
boys.
much her entertainment at her job. Just like, oh, how did you
we
reach
love
that
a healed
conclusion?
Aries.
Like, she just like, But something else about an Aries and their fire is that they will prove you wrong in the name of truth. They will do everything possible to prove you wrong in the name of truth. And that's pretty much what she did. Because despite all of this...
I feel called out.
I just know
called
you.
out.
I just know you.
So. They will prove you wrong in the name of...
Well, it's the
knowledge.
Truth.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they're not going to demean you for... Right. Yeah, like,
I mean, I wouldn't.
They are going to bring you the truth, and they will make you realize the truth, and not necessarily in an angry fashion either. They will just want
passionately
you to be able to think, like, outside of where your mind is.
Also, I can't speak for all Aries, but me as a healed Aries, I will never fight for something to prove something right if I have even the smallest amount of doubt on it. I'll be like, let me look into that. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
But if I know for a fact that's true, I'm gonna fight you on it unless you are a certain type of person that will never admit they're wrong.
But it also has to get to a point. Like, she will talk to you until she realizes that, like, you're one of those.
Oh, yeah, there's some people in my life that I'm like, it's not worth it. Let them think they're right, because them being wrong isn't gonna affect me. So,
yeah. Well, she was kind of she was not a quick to anger individual, like outwardly. Not
I'm
no, not
telling
like
you.
not
No.
explosions or
Listen,
anything like
I'm
that.
telling you, Aries, they aren't as short-tempered as people think. We're just passionate. We just
Mhm.
like to express ourselves. Anyway.
Yes. And something else about an Aries, Frances's Aries is showing again, like I said, her competency couldn't be ignored forever. Okay? She was organized. She followed through. She remembered details that others forgot. She slowly began to be relied upon because of this, and not just for information, but for judgment as well. So men in her workforce started to come to her to help solve problems over hearing what she has to say and like let it pass them, over the head. So about 4 or 5 years of working tirelessly in this field, she was finally starting to get some authority, some respect. 4 or 5 years. Like, some people like to feel, like, invisible, right? Some people prefer that because they're just not the type that likes attention or gives them anxiety to have, like, all eyes on them.
Oh,
But
but it's crazy because I'm in a podcast, but that's me. But like,
well, like, I mean,
but I can't see you seeing me is the thing. I'm
yeah,
just spending time with my
we're not in front of
bestie.
people. We're literally doing what we've always done. Crazy. But that would take on the average person, that would take a toll. Being felt like you were being undermined, not respected, even though you know you're good at your job, like that takes a toll on people. So the fact that she was able to withstand 4 to 5 years, let's like reach more towards the 5th year, she finally was starting to get just that little bit, of respect that she deserves.
I will say, in this time period, to only be kind of pushed to the side as a woman for only 4 to 5 years is wild. Like today, unacceptable. But back then, that, like, she must have been so incredibly smart.
No, that's what I'm saying. She was so smart that they literally could not treat her that way anymore. They literally couldn't.
For this time period, it's crazy to me that it only took 4 to 5 years.
That's true. But she was definitely not your like average person as well, like by any means too. Like she was pretty freaking cool, okay? So on March 25th, 1911, a historical fire happens. It was the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory that caught on fire.
Is this the one where like all the people jumped out of the top floor of the building?
So the factory occupied the upper floors of a building in Manhattan, and when the fire broke out, many of the workers, who were mostly young immigrant women, found that the exits were locked, and they were so desperate to escape that they jumped out of the building. And then as the smoke, after the smoke cleared and the fire died down, it was found that 146 people passed away. So Frances, she saw, because she does inspections in public, that's her job field. She saw the aftermath firsthand. And through all the chaos, she realized one thing, and that was that this fire was completely preventable.
Mm-hmm.
So in her work leading up to 1911, that fire, Frances had spent years visiting factories, workshops, and industrial buildings across New York. She walked through crowded sewing floors, narrow stairwells, and really poorly marked exits. She had seen doors locked during working hours to prevent theft or breaks. And these conditions were not like unusual during this time. They were super common. So when the fire broke out, nothing about this scene surprised her at all. She understood immediately that workers had not failed to escape because they panicked or acted irresponsibly. They failed to escape because the building had been designed and managed in a way that made escape impossible. Like, fire escapes were inadequate, stairways were too narrow, and the exit doors were locked. Like, the safety planning was completely non existent. So, Frances knew that these problems were not unknown. Complaints had been made before, labor organizers had raised concerns, inspectors had noticed violations that were ignored or very poorly enforced, and the rules existed, but no one had been held accountable for following them. So for months following, Frances was appointed to the Factory Investigating Commission, and she was inspecting factories, questioning owners, documenting unsafe conditions, and played roles in making labor laws. So she was handed a lot of power because she could see and recall and present things that a lot of people couldn't. It takes a very certain like skill set to be able to do those things. So first, when she was put on this board, this commission, men completely resisted her presence. They questioned her firmness, they questioned her tone, they questioned whether a woman at all could handle the work that required confrontation, because you have to talk to these, business owners. I'm just like,
ask an Aries to confront people. They'll do it.
I mean, but like I said, in true Aries fashion, Frances responded by doing exactly what she's always done. She shows up prepared. She asked specific questions, and she followed the facts wherever they led, pretty much. It became extremely difficult to dismiss her when she knew the details better than anyone else in the room. So, factory owners also tried to argue that the conditions were adequate, and Frances could list violations from her memory. She's just like, well, this is why this is wrong from this article, from this blah, 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 blah. And they literally couldn't argue with her. Lawmakers even hesitated over regulations. I don't know if they had it like an in with that business owner, or they had vested, or like they were just like, don't let this pass because it's going to cost us extra money and we can't like help you with your campaign or something like that. But Frances could point out the exact consequences of inaction. So they literally couldn't resist like anymore. So,
well, finally, they listened to her.
And over time, Frances was appointed to a very influential role in the New York State government.
Hell yeah.
Eventually, she became the Industrial Commissioner of New York. That was a position that placed her in charge of enforcing labor laws across the entire state. It was a huge responsibility and non-existent for women.
So she was like the first woman in New York state government?
Not in the state government as a whole, no.
Okay.
But like having a role, especially when it comes to labor laws, that's not a woman's position. So, yes. But in this role, she works with a governor named Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Oh, he sounds familiar. What'd he do?
Yeah, we know him. And when Franklin, as governor, Franklin Roosevelt supported labor reforms. He completely supported Frances's advice. Okay. She even became eventually one of his most trusted advisors on workplace safety, employment, social welfare, and they had a very, very good working relationship. And when Franklin Roosevelt was elected president in 1932, Frances knew that the problem she had spent years studying in New York, which was unemployment, unsafe workplaces, economic insecurity, were about to become national problems because of her relationship with FDR. So soon after FDR takes office, he asked Frances to join his cabinet as Secretary of Labor. And she became the first woman in U.S. history to serve in a presidential cabinet.
Love it. Ah! I love her.
But in true Aries fashion, before officially taking the position, Frances presented FDR with a list of policies she believed needed to happen. This list included unemployment insurance, old age pensions, minimum wage protections, and limits on working hours. And she made it clear that she was not interested in holding that title without the authority to pursue these goals. And FDR
Good
agreed.
for her. She's like, my way or I'm going to hit the highway.
She's pretty much, no, I feel like she's like, yes, but she's also like, you would be stupid not
Right.
to have this for the American people.
Right. Because, like, I mean, always bringing it back to Wu Zetian. You take care of your people, they take care of you. Like, and that's what Frances is wanting to do, which is ultimately going to benefit Franklin D. Roosevelt. So,
yes. And where she, I mean, of course, she's already making history and stuff like that, but one of her most significant contributions as her role, or was her role in shaping Social Security.
Nice. Good for her. Good for us.
Frances believed, I know, right?
Well, maybe not. I don't know. We might not have Social Security by the time, like the payout, by the time we get old.
I don't know. But we can still hope.
Do. We can still hope.
But,
positivity.
But Frances believed that economic security should not disappear with age, with injury, with unemployment. To her, it's this idea of being okay wasn't like radical. It was just logical. People who work their entire lives should not be left without support simply because they could no longer work. So by the end of, like, if they literally could not help it. So by the end of her tenure, Frances Perkins had helped reshape how the federal government as a whole understood work, safety, responsibility, and she didn't seek attention for it at all. She just simply stayed focused on the problem in front of her and just kept pushing on forward. So in the end, her legacy was obviously not, like, yes, the laws that she helped create is significant, but it's not what her legacy is, in my opinion. But it's like the example she set.
Yeah,
she showed that competence could become authority. And like when she first started out, that patience could become power. And that simply refusing to leave could be a form of progress. She held out.
Wow.
She was strong. So
I like her.
Nobody wanted her in the room, and she sat there anyways. And she changed history for it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love
That's
her.
why I was like, I feel like this would have been great part two-er for the like badass women or something like that. But at the same time, I was just like, but she faced what a lot of women faced whenever they were trying to get an education and when they were trying to, enter the workforce, and what they experienced in the workforce. There weren't any accounts that I could see where things might have gotten a little bit bad, because I'm sure that, men said some inappropriate things to her, and I'm sure she's not like ugly. So I'm sure that she had to face like maybe some harassment, because she was, in a very people facing position, going to these businesses, talking to business owners, factory owners, managers, um, going to lawmakers and stuff like that, being in meetings. So, and she
Well,
was the only woman in the room, other
I
than like clericals and secretaries that would like
mhm.
jot down notes and stuff, of course.
I wonder if, so this is my train of thought of like, in this time period, do you think that men found her less attractive because she was so smart? So they didn't hit on her because they were like, they felt like inferior to her and they didn't want to feel that way? That's what I was thinking. Like
I
maybe
mean,
she didn't.
possibly, but there's always an
Oh, there's always
ego.
one or two or
There's
10.
always, yeah. They're like, "Oh, like instead of, wasting your energy on this, how about you let me take you out to dinner or something?"
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure let's go out for a drink or whatever.
But
I mean,
okay.
I'm sure there's been rude comments of like, like get as much work from her as you can before she gets married, because they had what
Yeah.
was called a marriage bar, and as soon, like I said
Mm-hmm.
kind of earlier, as soon as you got married you were let go from your job, because you were just like worthless because you had responsibility for kids and the house and your husband and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So um
Well,
yeah.
the reason why I say that is because I, my entire adult life, I have been told I'm very intimidating. I don't see it. I think I'm a weird little goblin girl, and that's okay. and and so I don't see how I can be intimidating. However, I think it's because I come across as confident and intelligent when you first meet me. And so I think that shies people away. So I think the only harassment she would have gotten would be from the people who were like, oh, I'm definitely better than her.
I was told one time, by when I was a journalist, I would interview a clinical psychiatrist a lot just for like general stories, knowledge on specific subjects and stuff like that. And he became like a pretty good, like, I guess you would call like a colleague, or
Mm-hmm.
like, cause I would work with him. But, he was like, you are like so intelligent,
Yeah, you are.
you present yourself well, like all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as I get out of like that field, and go back into like retail or whatever job like I landed into after journalism, like temporarily because getting my degree. But it I feel so, like, out of place
Mm-hmm.
because my boyfriend tells me, and yes, he is biased or whatever, but he was just like, like, "You're, like, a catch." Like, you're almost intimidatingly pretty that, like, people wouldn't know if they could approach you or wouldn't be attracted because you don't seem super, like, approachable, like, way out of, like, a league type thing. And, that's not exactly how he said it, that's just how I'm
Right.
summarizing it. Because I was
I
like, "What do
think
you mean?"
now, definitely. But I think when I first met you, you were super people pleasy. And like
Mhm.
that's really
Recovering or
uh,
recovered.
you're always recovering if you were a people pleaser. I'm sorry.
True, true.
But when I first met you, for sure, like people would approach you all the time, and I think that's because you gave off this aura of like,
Mm.
I will try to be what you want me to be versus like I am
Mhm.
who I am. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I've never really been approachable, cuz like I've only ever been catcalled once, and I lived in New York for 3 years. And the only reason I was catcalled was because I was with my friend who is a bombshell. So, was it even me? I don't know.
No, but you are stunning.
Stop. But I also
I
I
know.
also understand like I do give off an aura of I am who I am. You're not going to change that. And that deters a lot of people.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's so interesting because, you know, girls at my job now, they'll just be like, oh, he just asked for my number, like, like blah, blah, blah. And they have like husbands and partners and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I told, I told my boyfriend, I got hit on, like, not because I want it at all, but I just like noticed like the pattern between, I really hate to say this, but like between like intelligence levels. Is that bad?
No.
I feel like that's bad. But like in between like intelligence levels, because when I was a journalist, I was hit on so much by like old businessmen and like stuff like that, and like men who like thought that they were like
The shit.
philanthropists and like all this kind of stuff, like all the time. And then I, you know, get in the job that I'm in right now, and it just never happens. And I think it's because there's like like you said, like an aura that it's just like, because I don't necessarily think that I'm ugly, but I think it's just kind of like the mindset of like, don't approach this dominant woman. Like she's gonna be too much. She looks a certain way. I was even told by a security guard at a job I had that I look like I just don't belong here where I live, in the area that I live. He was like, you just don't look like you're from, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but you just don't look like you're from here. And I was like,
maybe you should come here.
What does that mean? What the heck? What the heck does that even mean? If you have a theory of what that could mean, like leave that down below. But I genuinely was just sitting there, and I called my boyfriend. I was like, what does this mean? And apart from not having, because I live in the South, apart from not having like a super Southern accent, what does that mean? I'm biracial. I'm black and white. There's lots of biracial people here. Like, what does that mean? What is, like, what?
I'm going to give you what I think it means, because I am also from where you currently are. I think it means, okay, so when I lived there, every age group that I interacted with there, it was very, very rare to find a woman that was just themselves and not like put on like a fake mask of like, oh my God, like, it's so nice to meet you.
Like, bless it.
Bless your heart. Like, and like, by the way, if a Southern woman says, bless your heart, she's not being nice. She's not being nice. She means you're dumb. Anyway, but I think it means that you have come into who you were truly meant to be from the beginning, and you no longer put on that fake exterior that majority of Southern women do.
Yeah, I get that.
And like, I personally have never been like that, because you've met my mom. My mom's the exact same way of like, she's not gonna like put up a fake face. She's gonna be who she is, and that's just how it is. And like, that was who I had to model after, and here we are.
Here we are. No, and I went through a lot of therapy after, like, I think I've said this before, but after a divorce that I went through, I went through a lot of therapy. Like, we had 3 therapists. It was a rough time. So we had to heal the broken parts of me so that I can figure out who I am or who I wanted to become. And that is why we have the personality that we have today, who's very just me, I guess.
I also like to take a little bit of credit.
Oh, yeah. No,
I've definitely been like, stop people pleasing. Stop it.
One of her famous lines is, don't talk about my best friend like that, talking to me. Like, she just looks at me and just goes, if I said something like self-deprecating or self-sabotaging, she's just like, don't talk about my best friend like that.
Yeah, because I think the world of you, and
I think the
I
world
don't
of you
like when
too.
anybody talks bad about you, especially yourself. Anyway,
Same.
but
Same.
anyway, what a good
Anyways.
story.
Did you like it?
I loved it. Honestly, I
Good.
really did. It was magical.
And I'm actually really surprised that I didn't know about her, like, from like FDR's timeline. I'm actually really, really, really surprised.
Well, the people who don't, like, the people who are leaders not to be famous or not for the notoriety, you're never really going to know who they are because
Yeah,
they're
but even
doing
when
it
learning
to
about Social
improve.
Security, like in social studies
Right.
and stuff like that, it's like, it's crazy that I do not remember this name.
Yeah. I mean, it does sound a little familiar, but if I did hear about her, it's locked away somewhere deep in my brain where it's unobtainable. But now it's at the front. Wow.
It's like Frances Perkins.
But next week, I got a story for you guys, and it's going to be a lot darker. Like, a lot
Yeah,
darker.
I was kind of hoping that I would go last just to kind of lighten it up a
Yeah.
little bit, but it's fine.
But that's okay. That's okay because the topic we have the next week, after my story next week, it's going to be lighter. It's going to be so funny. It's going to be great.
So
I'm so excited. Anyway, but next week, prepare for darkness, sadness, but it does kind of sort of have a good-ish ending, as good as it can be.
Fair.
So, see you guys next week.
We'll see you next week.
Goodbye. Ow.
Oh, a little ow.
Ow. I just want to do ow.
All right, you went low, so I'm going to go goodbye.
I love it.
Loved it. Drink your water. Take care. Drink it. Take care, you guys, and we will see you later.